our special guest today. I love having both on the show. Kelly Dix, welcome.
Hi.
Mandy Pender, I'm so delighted that you're both here. And you represent the hospital so well, and especially the trauma department. And as trauma coordinators, September, you were telling me, is Suicide Prevention Month.
Yes, and I think some people don't realize that's part of the trauma program, but obviously when somebody has an attempt, that puts them in a traumatic injury category in most instances. And so that's how the trauma system became involved with trauma prevention. And actually the focus of our whole state this month is working on that awareness of that and getting the word out to people. And so to make it a little more fun, we thought maybe we'd play a game with you. You willing?
Oh, sure. You bet I am.
Awesome. Okay, so it's quick.
Uh-oh.
Name 3 risk factors for teen suicide.
3 risk factors. Bullying.
Good. Yes.
Weight.
Could be
possibly or
yes.
self-image. Oh gosh, I love trivia. Let's see, what could be a third one? Peer pressure.
Conflict with parents.
Okay.
Yes. Recent trauma or suicide of a family member or a friend is a big one, and that's actually the number one.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of times the towns will say something about they have a rash of suicides. It's because one of the friends is committed or attempted, and then several others will also do so. And then conflict with parents. And I know that's kind of going to scare some parents out there, but the key to that is just speaking with your teens, being open with them, and making sure that you talk to them about the problem and be aware of what's going on with your teen at the same time.
Keep those lines of communication open, and it's tough.
It is tough.
I mean, you usually, having raised kids
yes.
that went through those teenage years, and yeah.
And the other couple are, there's an increase if there's guns in the home, and I know we all live in a hunting community. We were just talking when we were like, we all have guns.
Yeah.
All of us have guns in our home. But it just makes it a little bit easier to get to them, and so make sure that that's something we talk about and are aware of. And if it's younger kids, like the 12, which is the lower
kind of
risk
end of the
group,
scale.
but make sure you have the trigger guards on your guns and make sure they're protected in the gun safe. And the other one is, of course, if they have any mental illness or depression already, that puts them at a higher risk.
Sure.
Okay, ready for the next one?
I'm ready.
What's the most common method of a suicide attempt in Arkansas?
It was alcohol related.
Nope. Firearms, which is why we went
Firearms.
back to that.
Okay. I'm thinking how many people are depressed, drink, get more depressed, and then have an accident.
Right.
But,
well, and the reason that we'll talk about that is who is more likely to succeed in an attempt?
Males.
That's right, males. They're 81% or 5 times more likely than women, and of course their method of choice is
the firearms. Yeah.
So that's kind of those 2 statistics relate right back into each other, and so that's how come we brought that up.
Yep.
And some of the reasons why, which Mandy's going to talk a little bit about, are the risk factors for males, what makes them more likely to attempt.
You know, isolation or divorce, separation, unemployment, that middle-aged group, 35 to 44, it's even higher. And you normally, when you think about suicide, you think of teenagers and young adults, but it's also high in the middle-aged male group.
And males don't do what women do. We sit here and talk and communicate, and if we're not happy about something, we use our female friends as sounding boards.
Yes.
Men sit there maybe next to the guy next to him and have a beer and watch the football game, but there's no communication
Stays
going
aside.
on. Yeah.
They don't share that with anyone. It bottles up.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that if you know any male, or if you are a male that's struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts, please go out and seek help. And we're going to have some numbers throughout the show that will be available for you, and we'll mention this again. But it's very important that if you're having any thoughts of depression or suicide, or making a plan to attempt a suicide, to please get help, because help's out there, and we want you to get that help that you need.
Well said, Kelly. Well said. You bet.
Okay, ready for another one?
Oh boy.
Is there a difference in suicide deaths between the different races? Or like what race is more likely to have a suicide with death?
White Caucasian males in the 80-something group.
Yes.
It is correct. Whites, and they're 92% of all suicide deaths are whites. And we didn't find a lot of statistics on why, though. Part of the thought process behind that was that as you talked about, the white male culture doesn't have a lot of communication back and forth, and some of the other cultures, they do have a little bit closer bond with family, or
little extended family, and a little bit more.
Okay. What risk group is 3 to 5 times more likely to attempt suicide?
Wow. The actual attempt, maybe that's the teens?
There you go. And there's a
Okay.
specific group, when you kind of hit on that a little bit earlier.
I don't know.
Bullied teens.
Bullies,
And you know,
okay.
that's been a
Bullying.
big focus
Yeah.
in the media lately,
Wow,
is
I
bullying.
know
and
it.
and
It's been horrible.
we have some stuff we want to talk about with that too, but one of the things about that is the schools are becoming more aware.
Yeah.
There's a lot more school focus on that, and the children come home at a younger age talking about that you're not allowed to be a bully. But whether we like it or not, kids are still getting bullied in every school, and I can promise you today there's somebody being bullied and somebody coming home feeling badly about that, or perhaps their child is the bully. And again, there are places that can help with either one. If you feel like your child is being aggressive and being a bully, we can get you some help with that. And if you feel like that your child may be the victim of being bullied, do something about it. Talk about it.
Yeah,
get them
don't
some help.
wait. I mean, these kids are going, so I look at this and I'm thinking back, and of course that was a long time ago, but but when I think back, I remember, I know that there was always
Yes.
somebody picking on somebody else. But it seemed as though there were more compassionate other kids that would say, hey, leave them alone.
Yes.
And I'm not seeing
And
that.
there's so many different methods and ways to communicate between children now. In this day and age, they text each other. They have Facebook. They
Yeah.
have different forms of texting, Snap and Kick and things like that. And they can send messages to each other that we as parents aren't very aware of.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to police in these different formats of Instagrams and Snapchats and things like that, and watch what your children are seeing in the messages. But like we saw last week in a case of a 12-year-old that was bullied, her mom had shut down her Facebook. Her mom had taken her out of school, homeschooled her, and the kids were still sending messages on text message, Snapchat, and Kick and things like that. So the little girl was still getting messages. The lines of communication just has to be open there for parents. And parents have to check those things sometimes.
Yeah.
We as parents every now and then have to pick up that phone and cruise through those messages and see what's being said to each other, because oftentimes kids aren't nice to each other, and we have to make sure that there's
And it's
not
so
crossing the line.
instantaneous. It's so, in other words, there is no thought about, if you were sitting in class and say, boy, that guy bumped me in the hall and I don't like that, and I'm going to get him later. You've got all day to process that once upon a time. Now all you have to do is you can instantly start
And
something.
it's not a face-to-face confrontation, whereas, where I might not say that to you to your face, these kids, I mean, it's not face-to-face.
It's so anonymous.
It's so anonymous.
Yeah.
They can easily send out a nasty gram or whatever, and it's just out there, and it weighs on some of these kids' minds and things. And that's a big part of bullying right now, and that's we're seeing an increase in suicides in teenagers from the years past, and especially with the bullying, it's increasing.
And you hit a great point too, Mandy, on this too, with, moms and dads, if you're paying for that phone,
Yes.
it's your responsibility to make sure what's on that phone.
Yes.
I understand, I've always, we all as parents want to respect our children's privacy, let them grow, give them the benefit of the doubt, but boy, oh boy, if it comes down to life or death, I think I'd be checking to see what the heck's on those phones.
Absolutely. And we have to remember too that young teens and adolescents aren't developmentally able to process that it is really a long-term solution to a short-term problem. And the thing about that is that if with a little bit of time, even something that seems insurmountable can be accomplished.
Right.
And so if you think that your teen is struggling with that, get them some help and help them get over the problem so that it doesn't end up being a tragedy for the family.
Yeah, it really does come down to responsibility and paying close attention and
Yes.
keeping those lines of communication open. And, like in the mail, you all know this, and it's probably why the rate is higher too. They're not even fully developed till 21, 22. I mean, the
Impulsive.
brain is, and very impulsive. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
And then especially the younger set, like the girl that was in, I believe it was in Florida that Mandy was
Yes.
speaking of, is she was 12, and that age group doesn't really have learned yet that death is still seems like not necessarily permanent to that age
Right.
group,
Right.
especially with the fantasy with the all the movies and things.
Yeah.
That if you think about a 12-year-old, they haven't quite cemented in that it's not
This
like
is
the
it.
movies, it's
Yeah.
real life,
Reality.
and that younger group especially has more difficulty with that.
Yeah, they have no life experience to base the reality on, so.
So they think their whole life is going to be being bullied, and they don't realize
Yeah.
that, you know, when they get out of school,
You can get
there's-
way past all of this and someday look back at it and go, you know, it was
Yes,
nothing.
that was nothing.
Yeah.
That was so not
Yeah.
important at that time.
Yeah,
And it's easier for some of us parents. Sometimes whenever our kids come home, it's not our child that's being bullied, but it's someone else's child. And sometimes we just kind of overlook some of that. And we need to be responsible also and inform someone, if not the principal, someone at the school, a counselor. You know, my daughter or son just mentioned that this child was being bullied or this was going on. You know, even though my child is not involved directly, I have a responsibility to say something.
you bet, you bet. And there's that key word again, responsibility.
Yes.
Let's keep going with the game as soon as we come back from this short break. We will be right back. Don't go away.